Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful. Welcome to Collector's Dream Radio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Here in New York City in this spectacular space.
Yeah, we're in the Bugatti showroom at Manhattan Motor Cars, a really special place. Actually, a special place for me because this whole business actually started with my grandfather back in the day. And so really...
Well, it's special for me. I love Porsche. And then you walk down, it's Lamborghini, and there's Bugatti. I mean, stop the madness.
Yeah, well, I had to tempt you in some sort of way, right?
Obviously, your family has a great relationship with these incredible makers.
Yes, for sure. And I think it's a testament to all the things that we're going to talk about today is relationships and having those relationships with incredible,
that
makers
I
of
agree
things.
with. I think a lot of people don't understand how important that is, particularly in watchmaking.
100%. Watches, pens, vintage guitars.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it all today. But I'd kind of like to take a step back and go from day one because you grew up and you traveled a lot and you lived in a lot of different places. So I'd love to know the things that you saw growing up that stuck with you in relation to the collector that you are today.
Yeah, my biological father died when he was 37, so I was very young, and my mother remarried to a ILO expert, it's basically the United Nations, and he moved to Geneva. So my family was in Geneva, and my stepdad would take me out to the horological museums in Geneva, and there was a particular dealer still there called Les Ambassadeurs, which was legendary right on the water on Lake Leman, Lake Geneva. And we would go there on Saturdays together and he would walk me through all the brands. I was fascinated by it. Rolex, Omega, Patek, and all the other independent Swiss and European brands. So, of course, I couldn't afford any of them. Sure. And he really instilled in me, you can't afford to buy any of this unless you've earned it. You can't borrow money to buy a watch. It has to be part of your life. It has to be some amazing event that's occurred. You graduate, you get married, you have a child, whatever it is. That's what was ingrained in me. And that was the beginning of the way I thought about collecting.
Sure. And when you were a kid, did you collect anything? Comic books or anything like that?
I did. Baseball cards and comic books.
Yeah.
I wish I'd kept them.
I know, right?
I'm just sick about it now, particularly the cards. That's so nuts. But my first watch was around my first business deal, and it was a Cartier. A brand that has been stuck with me my whole life. I'm wearing my wedding rings Cartier.
Me too.
Yeah, it's one of those brands that's it's emotionally attached to me in many, many ways, but I also love the style of it.
Sure.
And now I think in this year's, show, Watches and Wonders in Geneva, they had the best of show. They were just crazy this year.
Yeah. And so out of all the things that you collect, pens, vintage guitars and watches, which of those came first in terms of your interests? Did it come at a time when you were selling your business? Did it come at a time when your business was just doing great?
It was watches first, and it was always about an event. It was when I would sell a deal or I'd get financed or something. I wanted to mark time,
sure,
so to speak. But I also would put inscriptions on a lot of my watches. I remember I was running a partnership called O'Leary Funds. It was a mutual fund business, and we got our first $500 million. I bought all the managers' roasters back to Cartier, and we scripted on a $500 million milestone, and those watches are priceless to me now.
Yeah.
That watch means so much to me, and I've gone on to do other things, but it was a moment in time, and I do often, and I should disclose to you because this is coming up in a few weeks, to give you an example of, I think about 16 years of Shark Tank,
sure,
which has become a passport for me. It's become I can go to any country on earth and people know who I am. They know Shark Tank. It's on in 42 countries. I'm the most hated guy in Austria. Who knew that? But I was talking here in New York with Adam, the CEO of Tudor.
Sure.
And he was showing me some of the remarkable materials that they were making black bays with. And silver was one.
Silver is amazing. The bronze, they just did the gold one.
Yeah. The silver really hit me because I was thinking about anniversaries and silver. And I said to him, is there any way you would consider making me a piece unique, a Shark Tank silver, with the Shark Tank logo on the dial, sure, inscripted with the name of every person that was there the day the pilot was shot, that are still working on the show today.
Yep.
He said, we love that idea. Let me go back to Geneva and talk to them. It took 2 years to organize just the logo release. No one's ever done it. I'm presenting those watches to everybody. I sponsored the project and I'm proud of it. September 16th in Los Angeles, and Adam's flying out.
Amazing.
We're going to have a dinner. These watches are priceless.
Amazing.
I mean, imagine, and it celebrates, our family of 16 years. But that's another example, Cameron, about what it is about a watch.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, the gifting aspect or the passing down aspect for future generations and all that is really what any collecting hobby is all about. It's for future generations. It's for your grandkids to say, my grandfather wore this, and then they give it to their kids and grandkids one day. And it keeps going down, in that sense. And for you, I know when you collect, especially watches, it's all about the dial. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
If the dial doesn't make sense.
I've noticed in just the pieces you brought,
Right.
how unique each dial is. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, if the dial doesn't make sense, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you move on to the other things. Then the case has to make sense. And at the end of the day, it just
I
tells
love your move into vintage. That is so cool.
I started in vintage. My grandfather that built this place and my other grandfather, they had vintage stuff. And I always admired them wearing a small vintage Cartier tank or a small Patek Calatrava with a denim shirt or with a suit.
Very cool.
Very cool.
And now smoking hot.
Smoking hot.
I mean, it's come for the full cycle.
Full cycle. But I've been interested in that since day one. That's where I started.
Yeah.
I didn't move there because that's where the trend went. I started there. And so I'm an old soul.
Yeah.
And so like you, I go for dial first when it comes to watches. But when it comes to things like pens and guitars, what's your mode there when you go to make an acquisition?
So the pen thing happened to me through the unique journey of wardrobe on Shark Tank. That's where the red bands came from. A woman named Artemis took over early on, and she said, listen, Kevin, you have a look now. You wear that black suit. I'm wearing it right now. The black suit, the black tie, the red poof. And I came in, I think in year 4 with a blue band on. She said, that's not a red band.
Absolutely not.
And I said, no, it's a blue band. She said, it's for me. It's got to be continuity. It's got to have a continuous thing with you. Your red bands from now on. If you're going to be on Shark Tank, you're wearing a watch, got to have a red band on it. I said, what is this, a curse? She said, no, it's not. It's continuity. And so I've been working with her now for over a decade. And the makers know about this, a Pantone 485, the whole thing. And then I got into, in the last couple of years, 2 watches.
Yeah.
And so now I'm wearing 2 watches on Shark Tank. They both have red bands. They match. And we have so much fun with the dials, matching the dials up. So, it's kind of part of the journey and I was talking to the guys at Rubber Bee. He said, you have personally increased the sales of red bands around the world like 30%.
I'm sure.
And which I'm very proud of.
I'm sure.
Because men want style. They want options.
Absolutely.
They want, if you're wearing jeans, maybe you want this, maybe you want that. If you're not, it's kind of like, you're a fashionable guy, right? You care what you're wearing.
I do. I sure do.
So, you can care.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to adding a pen, does the pen have to be red now, or does the pen have to catch your eye?
It does. And so what happened was when I started showing up with pens, Artemis said, nah, you're breaking the vibe. Go back to Montblanc or go back to whoever,
Sure.
and tell them it's got to be red.
Yep.
And so we started curating red pens long before they were even contemplated, particularly with Montblanc, who have really gone, they are the pen maker now.
100%.
And so I have many pieces that match. So you got the red pen. Now they even make a red ink.
Yeah.
So I'm writing down deals in red ink, with red nibs. And then Ferrari did a pen. It had a red thing on it. So we got the whole red thing going there. And I began to realize the way the cameramen shoot it. You got 20 cameras on the set of Shark Tank. And I walk in and Artemis goes through what we're doing and what we're wearing and all the continuity, all the notes. And then I talk to my key camera guy and he says, what are we dealing with today? I said, well, I've got, Richard Mille on the left and I think I'm going to do Rolex on the right. And I've got this monster, Montblanc. He says, good. Just want to know what we got. And then they catch it.
Yep.
And they make it part of that whole thing that Shark Tank has become.
And how about vintage guitars? Because you don't really get the
Those
red
are
thing
tough.
so much there.
Those are tough.
Harder to come by. And
Harder to come by. I think of different relationships I have. I was a shareholder at Fender.
Sure.
For years.
based in Arizona?
Yes. But they make in California, they have a custom shop. I have 2 Shark Tank Fenders, unique pieces, 001, 002.
Amazing.
Signed by all the Sharks, just I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I keep getting called up for auctions and stuff. And then I've got a Mr. Wonderful SG from Gibson. The Gibson people in Nashville made that. And then I've bought, Tellys, and I've got a lot of guitars.
Yeah.
And my wife's pissed at me because they take up a lot of space. They have to be maintained with humidity.
Absolutely.
But when I have friends over, as I will this weekend up at our lake house, I've got 20 axes there.
Yeah.
Incredible acoustics, Huss and Dalton. I mean, all of these, every guitar has its own personality. And I tell people, don't mail order a guitar.
Right.
Sit down and play it.
Right, because not every Martin is going to sound the same.
No, every Martin's different. Every Martin has different personality. And the way the keyboard feels, even if you're just starting out, it's got to feel right.
Absolutely.
And they're not cheap anymore.
They're not cheap at all.
Something that's really important with collecting anything is the community. And it's no secret that the watch community is pretty much ready to welcome anybody with open arms.
Yeah.
What's the pen and guitar community like? I mean, is it...
Well, you're a very astute guy to bring that word up. Let's go back to watch for a sec.
Sure.
Because the watch community can be very cruel. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, this is a really interesting topic, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Let's say, let me give you my biggest nightmare now that I'm a collector. Phone calls from very important people in my life that I do business with that have decided they want an FP Journe and they want a Patek Philippe and they want what they want and I'm going to get it for them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I could do that, but it's not now anymore.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. And so it's very painful to have to go through and explain to them, you're not a collector.
Right.
And you have to earn your way into the community. You've got to show yourself, show your colors that you care about horology, that you're into it for whatever reason you're into it for, and be respected in the community.
For sure.
I think about the Journe Society. I mean, just to get a Journe,
forget it.
It's
tough.
The point is, the other Journe collectors like me want to know you're not a flipper.
Right.
Because you can make 4,000% on a Journe.
Yeah, for sure.
And But here's the thing you got to understand. If I were to take like that Journe, that one of a kind vertical with a red K that made for me specifically, I've been already offered a fortune for that.
I'm sure. It's in the middle, one of a kind.
If I ever sold that, not only would I be banned for life within Journe, it would get out to the other watchmakers.
Yeah, they wouldn't want you doing the same thing with their brand.
And so I explained this to people because I ran into this guy. I was picking up a Meteorite Rolex. It's a true story. I won't mention his name or the dealer because I don't want to embarrass him.
Sure.
And so he called me about it. It was gold. I was interested in yellow gold. I'm moving into yellow gold a lot. I didn't have a Meteorite. Daytona, beautiful piece. And he's back at the store with his father talking about, whatever, because I'd showed up and I needed a red band. And we were going through all that crap. And this guy comes over and says, that was going to be my watch. I said, what do you mean it was going to be your watch? Why are they selling it to me? Well, I bought a piece. I bought a Rolex and I decided to sell it.
There you
go. Said, how long between when you bought it and you sold it? Oh, a week later, I decided I didn't like it. I said, and you're wondering why I'm getting this watch?
Right.
Do you not even understand what you did?
Right.
And this is a dealer here.
Yeah, they blackballed him.
And so I asked later, because I didn't know who this guy was, but he was a huge Shark Tank fan. We did some pictures with his kids and stuff. And the guy said to me, that guy is finished. He will never buy another piece.
Done.
He's done. And he wasn't a collector in the first place if he didn't understand.
Right.
And so when I now talk about this, you have to get yourself into the community mode. You're part of a community. It's like a tribe.
100%.
And you understand it, but a lot of people don't. I have never sold a piece.
Right.
I've never bought a piece and sold it. Even the stuff I do with Teddy, I never sell it.
Right.
And Simon Brette called me up. He said, I've got 5 prototypes. I know who you are. I'm going to sell number 3. I just want to make sure people have told me you've never sold a watch. Is it true? I said, Simon, not only have I never sold a watch, I will personally fly to Geneva to meet you with my father to see your shop, and I will take possession of the watch there.
Amazing.
And we spent hours together. Now he's got 2 more on the way for me. because I love his pieces and I'm going to wait the 3 years.
It's my first time seeing it in person. And
We pick that up and tell me what your initial reaction was to look at that.
first off, it's featherweight, but the hand hammering gold flux that he does on the dial is out of control.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw the digital pictures, but then I actually held the piece and my dad said,
it's
that's
mesmerizing.
insane.
mean,
That's titanium.
Titanium, the
Yeah.
barrels on the back are incredible.
And
I
the
mean, it's-
only one with red numerals, he did that for me, and the red band. Now, let me tell you a story staying on our community issue.
Sure.
So he made a piece for someone, clearly who he thought was a collector and supported his vision, of a month later, it went to the market for 450,000
we saw
Swiss francs.
it. It's crazy.
And he was pissed out of his mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, it first of all established a market price, secondary market. And that was not even a prototype. That's a prototype. I don't even know what the prototypes are worth. But I've talked to Paul Boutros. Paul Boutros, a good friend of mine over at Philips, has often solicited my wife and said, listen, this guy's going to die one day. Why doesn't your family choose 14 or 15 now? And then we'll have a relationship with you for the estate sale of Kevin O'Leary's watches. And I said, fuck both of you.
They're coming
All
with
of these
you.
watches are coming with me in the
100%.
coffin. That's not happening.
100%. You got to be at least a little happy while you're in there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to be away somewhere for a long time. I need good watches.
No, I think the one thing I love about the watch community, and I'll relate this to Journe specifically. I don't own a Journe. I would love to own a Journe.
Yeah.
But both Pierre from Miami and Kenny from LA flew out to Arizona to meet with a group of collectors, one who's a big Journe collector, but the rest of us don't maybe have one or two or none. They came out and spent the whole day with us to include us in the Journe community. They know very well that we're not going to get a watch right away.
Because
But
that's just how
the
it
fact
works.
that you would spend the time. I've
Right.
told Pierre.
Well, the fact that they would spend the time with us, I thought was really, really impressive because brands don't do that.
Well, they do now because, and I'm not the only one in the Journe Society that said this to Pierre and to FP himself and to Rocky. And there's a lot of other people in that company. I said, for every 10 made, 3 have to go to a guy like you.
Right.
A young guy coming in.
Right.
And it will perpetuate the brand in perpetuity, but make sure these people are real collectors. Even if they're young, you can tell.
Right.
I mean, a guy like you, I can tell you're a collector. You're crazy about these pieces.
Crazy
right?
about it.
So that's why they're interviewing you to determine, are you going to be part of the new generation? And I would say, yeah, I'll be your advocate for sure.
Well, I appreciate
Having
that.
met, yeah. I mean, Pierre and I have all kinds of conversations about watches, and I go on the trips, we went together to Japan to go to look at Grand Seiko and Creedor. And I mean, once you get this virus, this watch thing, you are screwed.
You're fucked.
You're just fucked. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, and the crap I go through with my wife about it all the time when she says, another watch. What are you doing? You can't even wear what you've got if you wore 6 a day.
Right.
But I just keep coming back.
Well,
That's the only reason I work anymore is to buy another watch.
Well, it's all the fun in it, right?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, collecting is this thing, and you get into so many different hobbies and so many different interests, and they all somehow mesh together. And as successful as you've been in business, I'd love to know what collecting has done for you in terms of the business person that you are.
It's made me reflect on my life a bit about what it takes. How many decades did it take for me to earn a crash from Cartier? 40.
Yeah.
Took me 40 years of buying Cartier before somebody in Paris said, give that man a crash.
Yep.
I mean,
And a skeleton too.
yeah, it didn't give it to me. I bought it.
Sure.
The number of people that have tried to buy that off me, I have never seen anything like it. That watch, I have never seen anything like it.
No.
I mean, you can't even tell the time on that dial.
The crash itself is already so avant-garde, but when you add the skeleton to it, it's a different ballgame.
But what the idea that I would ever sell it after waiting 40 years to have the right to buy it.
right.
Like, I asked the guy that offered me a crazy price for it, I said, why would I do this?
Yeah.
Can you give me a reason?
For what?
How am I ever going to get another crash?
Yeah.
He said, oh, you're Kevin O'Leary, you can get another crash. I said, no, I can't. I can't because they've entrusted the ownership of this piece.
Right.
And I really am appreciative. I picked it up in New York. I got to tell you, I was emotionally moved. Everybody in the room. even in the headquarters here in New York, and never seen it.
Yeah.
The Platinum. I think it's number 2. The other one's probably in the museum.
It's amazing.
And they're going to make a few more. Nobody knows when or who's going to get them. But I beg them, please make it so I can wear it on Shark Tank season 16.
Right.
And I sent a picture to Artemis and she said, that's it.
That's it. That's the one.
That's the one. She said, that's insane. What are we going to pair it with? And we're negotiating that now. I want to get another Cartier for the other side for the September shoot, because Cartier is so unique in how they've kind of transcended just watchmaking into style, history, horology, brand.
Right.
The whole thing is, it's almost a different level.
It's a different level.
And it's a level of taste that isn't for everybody. Some people poo-poo Cartier because it's too small, it's too delicate. But when you have that on, you are easily the most elegant and classy person in the room.
Yeah, I've always felt that look from 20 feet away just says something about style.
Yeah.
But it's also very collectible.
Absolutely.
And vintage, my first watch is a Cartier. And I just think about, I have that passion for brands and I've got many different watches, but I also want to support young watchmakers. And that's where I got this whole thing going with Teddy.
Sure.
And say, Teddy, you're supporting entry-level horology. You're trying to get watches for 2,000, 600, 800.
Right.
I'm a buyer. Like, let's work together. I have many pieces of his that I paid $600 for that people stop me and say, where'd you get that?
100%.
Because he totally gets me on the dial thing. So every piece I get from him is a piece unique from the dial perspective. Right. And the makers know it. But watchmaking is a commitment of your life. You start at 14 and then you're screwed.
Right.
I mean, you're really screwed. So it's half art, half science. If either you're into it or you're not.
Yeah.
And then the small business needed a huge budget for its TV ad.
Evan, you know the struggles of customer acquisition is way too scary to read after dark. Wonder Ads, powered by Tatari, helps small businesses run ads on TV at a low cost.
I asked 2 friends of mine who collect, not in the categories that you collect in or that I collect in, to come up with a couple questions that I felt were maybe a little bit more compelling to ask you because they're not collectors of the same stuff. And so the first one was, as a wine connoisseur, where would be a good place for someone to start collecting wine?
Collecting wine.
Yeah.
I started drinking wine in Switzerland when I was 8 years old because they don't have a phobia about wine in Europe. And they don't drink at night very often. It's usually at lunch, and they sometimes water down the kids' wine. But my father taught me about all the Burgundies, all the Bordeauxs. So I'm very fluent in French wines, not so much in Italian, really good at California, where I make a lot of wine for very fine wines. I sell a lot of wine, about 50,000 cases a year.
Amazing.
But I've learned something. My wife is almost a sommelier now. She has an incredible palate, particularly for whites. She can just have a sip of a white, say, Old World, Montrachet, 2017. Right. That's sick.
That's spectacular.
And she's right. I mean, how does she do that?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of at California in the same way. But what I've learned, though, is you have to try a lot of different wines to find out where you fit in the strata on what you like, right? Because it's not just about being a wine snob and buying a Latour 82. What if you don't like it? It's sort of, and so I say, try everything. Go in. And the crazy thing you got to know about the wine business is very often a wine that I'll sell for $11 on QVC, it's the same juice that's being sold for 110.
Absolutely.
And so it's all about brand, distribution, the making of the bottles and how you get them to people. I tell everybody who wants to start trying everything. Have you ever had a Pinot Grigio? Have you ever had a Chardonnay?
Right.
What about a Chablis? And you will find within a month what your palate is. I have shifted from oaky Chards now to Burgundian whites,
right,
which is a very expensive move because I'm so pissed off at how expensive they are.
Right.
But I've fallen in love with them. So I like a lighter Chard, a crisper Chard, a more minimally Chard. And that's, as I'm aging, my palate's changing.
Right.
So I'm very selective. And I don't drink any other alcohol except wine. I gave all that up because I'm into the sleep thing and longevity and everything else. but I have a glass of white and then 2 glasses of red with dinner. And I try to do that 3 hours before I go to sleep.
Yep.
Because wine and alcohol will screw your sleep up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a shame.
It is a shame because it's good.
Yeah.
And so the other question was on that tangent is, at this point, sometimes people that collect wine, they always say, oh, we'll save this for a special occasion. And then a special occasion comes, and what is the special occasion to open up something rare?
So that's a very good point you're making, because the other day I was with my wife, Linda, and I made a pizza because I have a pizza company called Brette. I make pizzas all the time. And I went into our cellar at the lake house and I found a 1962 Chevet Blanc.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I don't know how many bottles are left in the world of that.
Not many.
And I brought it down to the dock and she said, what you pull? I said, 62 Chevet Blanc. She said, what are you, your fucking mind? I said, what are we saving it for?
Yeah.
Why don't we eat it with this pizza?
Yeah. Perfect.
And I opened it. It was still perfect.
Yeah.
And I kept the bottle to put a candle in it just to show people we had it. We loved it. Cork was still good. The shoulder was good. There is no perfect time. The only crime would have been with that bottle to have served it to someone who didn't know what it was.
Right. Couldn't appreciate it.
I feel that way about the DRCs that I have, because when we have a dinner party and, Linda says, let's serve a DRC. I say no, because a lot of the people at the table won't even like it, won't know what it is. They don't like the barnyard smell of it.
Right.
And that bottle's worth $7,000.
Right.
And I bought it back when it was $350. I mean, I've been buying Burgundian wines since 1990.
Sure.
And so, I've curated them, and I have multiple cellars. I've got a good friend. We have a massive cellar in Boston. We buy divorce cellars. It's all these hedge fund guys always get divorced all the time.
Right.
And the first thing goes is the
wine.
The wine. So we go in for cash offers. I mean, hedge fund guys are remarkable. Some of them don't even know what they have.
No.
And
they're not the ones buying it.
They're not. Yeah, they got a wine consultant guy, and Eric goes in and looks at everything and says, okay, that's worth $250,000.
Right.
Or leave it. No commission. And, a lot of them buy wines like Californian cabs, and they're 20 years old. Those are dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're dead.
The other question I wanted to ask is, at this stage in your collecting, and with anyone's collecting, especially when it comes to rare pieces, you get the call when you get the call. And when it comes in, you either say yes or no. And you can't really plan it around a special occasion
You're right.
or a special time anymore. How often are you able to celebrate a win in your career by buying something in this stage of collecting?
It's harder now. It's harder. I had a unique situation recently, a difficult situation. We were going back to a very good friend of mine that was also, I invested in his company. He had a massive multi-billion-dollar exit, and he decided to get married. And he called me up and said, look, I want to go into collecting, and I'd like to I want to wear a Patek Philippe at my wedding.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. And I want my wife to have one too. Immediately I said to Linda, that's our gift to them, but how are we going to get them?
Right.
And the one he wanted wasn't even available in North America. It was primarily destined for Asia. This is where the relationship comes in with the maker. I called them up and said, here's the situation. Here's the family. Here's the story. Here's the details about the wedding. Here's the date. But it got worse. He wanted a Tiffany stamp.
Don't we all?
Yes. And so all I could do was tell the story to both Tiffany and Patek and say, can you help me with this? And I was expecting a no. But someone at Patek, I know who it probably was, but I won't mention, said, we love. We're going to do this for you. And that day I bought 3 Pateks.
Amazing.
You know why? Because my wife said, what am I, chopped liver?
Yeah, I need one now.
Yeah, and I want a Tiffany stamp too.
Yeah.
And I explained that problem. And so I probably won't get to buy it Patek for a while. But the company understands the moment in life that meant. And so even Tiffany cooperated.
Right.
Right. And everybody was a winner because he will never sell that watch ever. And she wept like a baby when we did a big presentation here in New York at the 2 different dealers that were set up for this, champagne, the wedding. She cried when the box opened.
Amazing.
And what a moment, right?
Amazing.
You think she'll ever sell that? Never.
No, can't beat it.
Can't beat it. For her wedding. So that whole thing to me just crystallized the relationship of watch collecting. They knew who I was. They met him. I think he will become a collector. He's like you, wants a Journe. You know, it's sort of, I don't know. I'm very passionate about it. You can tell, but I've been doing it forever.
Right.
It's not new.
It's not a new thing for you.
No, it's not a new thing. And I think I've earned my stripes. But you're right. I can't exactly time them anymore. But here's a great story because I'm going to show you these two watches.
Sure.
These are two Elegants. This is my original Elegant. This doesn't even exist.
Right.
This is a red dial Elegant made for the restaurant in Geneva, and only the patrons of the restaurant will FP make one for them.
Incredible.
I saw it with a red band. I said, FP, what am I, chopped liver? I'm the red band guy.
And red dial, anything red.
And he said, you don't live in Geneva. You're not a patron of the restaurant. I said, look, I have to wear that on season 16 right beside my original Elegant. He said, I like that idea. Take this one off my wrist, go wear it, and then come back to Geneva, give it back to me. Which, I mean, I have to do that.
Yeah.
But the point is, again, a relationship.
Right.
Right. For FP to give you his watch and say, I trust you with this. I'm happy it's on your wrist.
Yeah,
Go
I'm not
enjoy
going to
it.
steal it, obviously.
Right.
I'm very careful with it. But I have worn this and people have recognized it and they've gone insane. Like, I only heard of a ghost that had one.
Right.
Is it real? You know, all that stuff. Is that a knockoff?
Sure.
Is it fake? I said, no. He makes them, but good luck getting one.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I do want to wrap it up with the Collector's Dream Rundown. This is a list of questions that I ask each guest at the end, and you can answer them based on watches or pens or guitars or wine, whatever you see fit.
Absolutely.
So the first question is, what's the one that got away?
Oh, now you're broken my heart. I was in Geneva visiting the dial factory at FP Journe when a ruby came back made of the stone.
Wow.
I think they only made 11. It just happened that morning. I walked in and Pierre said, come up here. This isn't going to be bought by the person we thought was going to buy it. Yes or no right now. And I said, you mean it was owned by somebody else? And he said, yeah, for like a minute. And now it's back here. I said, I don't want a watch that was owned by somebody else.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I will never get that piece. I think it's worth $2 million now.
Sure.
It's one of 11. What the fuck was I thinking? Like, that's the one that
I know.
got
I wish
away.
I could have given you a note. Okay.
I'm so pissed you asked me that question. I will never make that mistake again. But the pain of that, because that should be in my collection.
It should.
Yeah.
Maybe one day it'll make its way back.
I don't know where the other, I mean, I like those, that is one of the rarest of the rare. You know, I know Danny Govberg and George Mayer over at 1916, and I tell them that story and they say, you idiot.
They give you a hard time.
Yeah, exactly.
How about the unobtainable? So this is one that's in a museum or a private collection. It's just unobtainium because you can't even get your hand on it.
So this may be a strange answer for you. I believe that I can get anything.
I love that answer.
And the reason I believe that is I have never broken my core values about collecting on any asset class. I don't flip anything. I think I'm well known for that. I've earned that. And I have found every brand takes my call for that reason alone. And so if there's something I want that's a piece unique,
it's a matter of time.
well, I have piece uniques.
Right.
When Francois was running AP, I said, Francois, I want a ruby red royal oak that no one else has. And he said, okay, let's do it. And I have that piece. I can basically never wear it because I can't insure it because they'll never make it again.
Right.
And when we send it to LA, it's by guard and I wear it on the set. And I remember on that piece, it took 2 years to design it. I was calling around collectors and I said to one of them, I can make it in any metal and I'm thinking of going platinum. And he said, never. It's gotta be steel. It's gotta be the 1972 Genta
100%.
steel.
Yep.
And I said, I can't remember which designer in Switzerland, they said, that's the hardest metal to work with in putting these stones in. I said, well, it's gotta be steel.
It's got to be.
And I'm glad I made that decision.
No, the watch is gorgeous. The video you did on it's fantastic.
It broke my heart.
Yeah.
To see that thing. I was so blown away. But so that may sound arrogant, but I believe Gibson made me a Mr. Wonderful, the only SG from the 60s with that light SG body, because I respect their brand and I'm going to play it. So no, I think in life you should believe everything's attainable if you're willing to work hard enough.
Yep, absolutely. I think this is a testament to that for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of this.
Yeah.
I knew we'd be getting together. there's a couple of piece uniques in there.
Yeah, there sure is.
And that, and right now I'm in love with that crash. It's sick.
It's next level.
Yeah. I mean, I'm into that Cartier zone right now.
It's a good zone to be in.
Yeah.
How about the on-deck circle? So this is something that got you excited in collecting, something maybe you're waiting on, a brand or a watchmaker that's got you excited right now?
There is. It's when you meet. I don't know if you're aware of what happens with Journe. Each year he runs a contest, worldwide contest for young watchmakers.
Sure.
And he invited me to this lunch, and I sat quietly and I said, FP, I'd like to interview these young watchmakers afterwards. He said, I don't have any problem with that. And he went downstairs, and then he came back and he decided to participate. And I shot a 2-hour interview with him that no one has ever interviewed that guy for that long. And the watchmakers. And I met 2 new watchmakers there. But I learned that they coveted, the previous year was Simon Brette. He won that award. And look what happened to his brand from that.
Incredible.
So right now I am awaiting, Simon Brette is going to make 3 different cases. So when I talked to Boutros about it, he said, whatever precious metals he goes into, to get the perfect collection from him, you need one of each.
Right.
And so I asked him about this. It's going to be a kind of a 5-year journey, maybe 10 years. We're going to do that. So
incredible.
And I'll have 3.
Yeah.
And that will be probably one of my most valuable verticals. Like in wine, when you buy 82 and then 80, 89, 90, it's a vertical from that decade. Sure. Well, it'll be the same for that.
Amazing.
How about the page 1 rewrite? And I phrase this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
If money was no object and you could collect anything besides watches and pens and guitars, and all it took was a blank check, what would it be?
I would probably go into cars more, but the thing that I found so difficult with cars is the storage of them.
Sure. And the maintenance.
The maintenance and the storage. Now, if you have a dealership like this and you have the facilities to do it, I would be a collector and I would take some portion of the basement in here and fill it with cars. And I've got many friends that are car collectors, but I see the pain and misery they go through. And because I love cars.
Right.
But I mean, the real estate headache alone.
Sure. It's madness.
It's madness. So for me, I can either buy another Porsche, which I love Porsches, or I can buy another FP Journe, which I can wear
and enjoy and store easy.
Yeah,
no maintenance.
Store is easier and all the rest of that. I'll say one thing that I've learned the hard way with watch collecting, and it's with guitars too, theft.
Yeah.
And insurance. I am going to be launching in the next 60 days a new watch insurance business. I started for myself.
Wonder Care, right?
Wonder Care. I put it out on my social. I've got thousands of requests for policies now. So I'm actually working with the insurers, starting U.S. domestic, and then we're going to go to Europe. Very hard to get licensed. I've been working on this for 2 years. But it lets me insure them for replacement value scraped from the internet in the last 24 hours.
Great.
Or purchase price, my decision.
Right.
About a 1.72% of either value.
Sure.
And I could turn it off and on at will.
Amazing.
So I need that. And I have this little plug for that business because we're talking about collectibles. But I'm excited about that business. I've got lots of partners in it. But
that'd be great.
Part of the whole watch ethos thing,
Yeah.
If anybody if anybody on earth should have a watch insurance company, it's me.
It's got to be you.
It's got to be me. And that's pretty well, when I went to Watches and Wonders, I talked to every brand and said, here's what I'm doing. They said, we're interested.
Yeah.
Because none of them want to be regulated. But
right.
I'm regulated in the indexing business for equity. So I'm already paying millions for my compliance. I can do a churn.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Next question is the GOAT. So who do you think is a great collector out there, whether it's one of your counterparts from Shark Tank or a good friend of yours?
I have a lot of respect for John Mayer.
Yep.
That he understands, and I know him. I've got to know Brady.
You guys were just at the white party together?
Well, we've met before that. He also has some Journes. He's interested also in dials.
Yeah.
The only guy that, I thought I won the night at the white party with the crash because the press was going crazy, all the paparazzi, until Brady walks in with a one-of-a-kind AP.
Yeah.
Covered in diamonds with, at the 11th hour marker, the number of Super Bowls he'd won. I mean, what the fuck?
That's a big FU.
Yeah, it was.
It's a big
And he
FU.
said, sorry, Kev, I've nailed you tonight. I said, you actually have.
Yeah.
But he's going to, maybe I'm speaking out of school, but he's making another, they made two. And they're going to have a massive auction on that second piece.
Amazing.
It'll go for millions.
It sure will.
Yeah. It'll be the only other one identical to Brady's. And I think that'll be a big auction item.
Absolutely.
But that's great too. That's for charity, right?
Yeah. How about the hunt or the ownership? Which one do you enjoy more?
I think the hunt.
Yeah.
That's a pretty unanimous answer with most collectors. Yeah.
I love it when people say, you'll never have this watch.
Yeah.
And then,
then
a
you get
year
it.
later, I've got two of them.
Right.
Because I just find that I don't care who the maker is.
Right.
I'll fly, I'll see them, I'll talk to them, I'll explain who I am if they don't know me, and I'll buy a watch.
Yeah.
And they want me to buy a watch because it falls into a collection. I think, by the way, I have to tell you a true story.
Sure.
I thought I was maybe the world's largest watch collector for a while.
Right.
Until I got to the United Arab Emirates.
Oh, forget it.
I am a nothing burger compared.
Claude and all
I could not believe the collections over there.
Yeah.
The amount of piece uniques, the incredible, those guys really, really, really are the guys.
Yeah.
And you've said before that you kind of, if they're in the auction room, you stay away. But
Claude.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are guys that I know I can't beat. There's always somebody bigger than you. You have to respect that. There's always somebody above you. And if I go to a Phillips auction or something, I'll ask them, is Claude on this? Does he want this piece? Because I'm not going to get it.
Right.
And that happened on a Chopard. And I saw the Chopard in the previewing 3 days earlier. One of a kind, laughing Mexican skull by I think it was a Swiss woman artist who carved that. And I said to Paul, listen, I'd really like to be on the bid on this thing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make a fool of myself worldwide. I need to know if Claude's going to buy this.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows if he wants it, you're fucked.
You're out. Yeah.
You're out. It doesn't, you do not have enough capital.
you're just making it more expensive for him. That's all.
He doesn't give a shit.
And he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit. So it's pointless. And apparently he had decided that he had something similar. Claude Saphir, now he's suffered a health setback, but he is probably of Lebanese descent like me. I'm half Lebanese, half Irish. I've met him. What did he have on his wrist when I met him the first time? Journe. He has 000, the first prototypes FP made for him. Nobody even knows about it.
Unbelievable.
So, I saw that and I said, I don't recognize that piece, but it's a Journe and I know every Journe. He said, no, you don't.
You don't know this one.
You don't know this one. I just met him for lunch and it introduced me by one of the royal family and we spent 3 hours together. I realized I'm just dog shit compared to him.
Well,
it's sort of, it's very important to be humbled.
Yeah,
like
there's
that,
levels.
to understand, but he's in a different level.
Absolutely.
He's not even human.
No.
It's just,
it's madness.
and he has some of the very first prototype Rolexes.
Yeah. Really rare stuff.
If that collection ever comes to market, it will be $1 billion sale or more.
At minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't do them all at once. They're going to have to. I don't think it's coming. I think it'll stay in the family. It's like the John Reardon on the John Lennon watch, the Patek.
Right.
It's back here in New York.
$24.99. Yep.
Yeah. And so I talked to him about it. That's a piece I'd like.
Yeah.
And so, but Yoko Ono has decided not to sell it.
Yeah.
It's probably going to Sean.
Yeah.
It's probably the world's most sought after watch today.
How far above the Paul Newman Daytona do you think that would go?
So we talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
I was thinking in today's market, which is also down about 28%.
Yeah.
For brands except like Journe's and certain other brands, the Simon Brette, there's no correction in price there because there's so few. The Newman with seller's commish was 17.2 US, I think.
Yeah, 17.1, 17.2, somewhere right around there.
Right. I was thinking 25.
That's what I was thinking. 24, 25. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So for me, what I wanted to do with that piece, if I could have been allowed to have a private sale, and it just was a one conversation with John.
Yeah.
I said, if I could go see her and bring together a syndicate of collectors, 4 of us, 5 of us,
Right.
so she would know with certainty that watch would never be traded.
Right.
It would just be held by us during our lifetimes in our estates out of respect for it. He said, I think so.
No, I think the push and pull of her even getting it back, the story's crazy. The most wild story I've ever read.
Yeah, no, it's
And
all over the internet.
Jay Fielding did a great job.
No, I
covering
thought
it.
they did. I thought
Yeah.
it was great. But once I learned about it and I said, it's a Tiffany stamp. So I asked Reardon, I said, how do we know with certainty, given all the hands it's gone through? He said, believe me, if I open that up, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And no one would buy that without Reardon checking it.
100%.
He's the goat on
He's the
Patek.
guy. Yeah.
He's the guy. So everybody would, if you're buying vintage Patek, you have to buy it from him.
Yeah.
Even
for
you
sure.
have to pay his commission. It doesn't matter. He's got to open it up and look.
No, you can sleep good at night knowing you bought something.
Yeah. Because a lot of these, what you've got on here, these are rare as you know what.
Yeah.
But also there's knockoffs too.
100%.
Yeah. Can I see that thing?
Absolutely. Please.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap it up while you're looking at that
Yeah.
with the most important question, which is, do you feel that you were born with the collector's gene?
I do actually.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call it a gene. I'd call it a curse.
A curse.
Yeah, it's a curse. It really is.
Yeah.
I keep saying to myself, okay, why don't we just cool it for a couple of months and not bring another watch home just to see if we could do it.
Yeah.
Sort of like a drug addict.
Yeah.
Not possible.
No, not possible. Well, there you have it. Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful with Collector's Dream Radio. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And a fantastic piece. That's just
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
This whole thing, the coming back, the small diameters.
It's coming back. It's a classic.
Yeah, it totally looks great on you too.
Thanks so much.
You got it.
Thanks so much for
you.
coming on. Appreciate it. Thank you.